Hello, I'm Tal Heinrich, a spokesperson for the Prime Minister's office. Thank you for joining us. I'll start with a brief update before taking a few questions. Over 8,550 Hamas rockets have been fired at Israel since the October 7th massacre. More than 1,400 Israelis have been killed and 5,450 injured. To date, the families of 326 fallen soldiers have been notified that their loved ones fell in battle. We know that every soldier of ours is an entire world. These are particularly painful losses for the people of Israel. Our thoughts and prayers are with their families. The IDF has also revised the number of hostages, and as it stands, there are at least 240 hostages. In terms of an operational update, the IDF continues its coordinated ground, air, and sea operations in the Gaza Strip. During these operations, our soldiers are engaged in heavy fighting with terrorists on the ground. They were also supported by the Israeli Air Force, who are conducting real-time strikes to neutralize terrorists and Hamas military infrastructure. The Israeli Air Force is also acting as an aerial umbrella from above for our troops on the ground, striking Hamas with a level of heavy force they have never previously experienced. Furthermore, during yesterday's battles, the IDF killed a number of terrorists and prevented infiltrations into Israeli territory. Since the beginning of the war, Israel has struck over 11,000 sites belonging to terrorist organizations in Gaza. I'd also like to share an update regarding the IDF, Israel Border Police, and Israel security agencies' joint operations in Judea and Samaria to dismantle Hamas. Overnight, there were 46 arrests made, including 30 members of the Hamas terror organization. In Jenin, Israel arrested Atta Abu Ramila, a senior operative responsible for advancing terror activities against Israeli citizens. Since the October 7th massacre, Israel has arrested more than 1,180 suspects in Judea and Samaria. 740 of them are known Hamas operatives. We are closely monitoring the situation in Judea and Samaria and will provide further updates in due course. Turning now to our 240 hostages who have been in Hamas captivity for over 3 weeks. As in previous briefings, I would like to highlight one of our hostages, one of our brothers and sisters. This is Itai Chen, pictured here with his parents. Itai is a dual American and Israeli citizen. Itai is just 19 years old. He is an active member of his community, serving as a scout until the age of 18, and is an active basketball player. Itai has 2 brothers, Roy, 22, and Alon, 13. Alon just celebrated his bar mitzvah, but Itai was tragically missing from the celebration. Instead of celebrating his brother's milestone, Itai has spent nearly a month in Hamas captivity. We want to see Itai, along with all of our 240 hostages, home, released immediately and unconditionally. Israel also calls on the international community to use all means at its disposal to pressure Hamas to release all of the hostages. We note that there are hostages from 28 countries being held by Hamas savages in Gaza. This is the same Hamas who last week proclaimed that they would, quote, repeat the October 7th massacre time and time again, a call for endless mass murder attempts targeting Jews and Israelis. Finally, regarding humanitarian aid entering Gaza, Israel continues to work with our international partners to ensure that aid ends up in the hands of civilians in Gaza. We also expect that the volume of aid that is able to enter Gaza will increase over the coming days. Thank you. I will now take your questions, but I would also like to remind all of you here on the ground with us in Israel and also those joining from abroad that if you have any questions, if you'd like to get verifications, or if you're looking to connect with various members of Israel's government, please contact us at, and I'll give you the email, it's desk@pressoffice.co.il. Again, desk@pressoffice.co.il, or at the following number. You can write it down. It's +972 53 3033 635. We will send it out also in the email. Now, I see that we have at least one question. Coach Winehouse is there. Yep. You're unmuted, I think. Coach. Okay, a few things to break down here. First, you're asking about day after plans for Gaza. I will say that there are different contingency plans being discussed at the moment, not only among ourselves, the Israeli government, the Israeli military, but also with international partners. We are discussing different contingencies, but I was just on air with an Italian channel, and I'll repeat what I said there, that talking about these kinds of plans right now is very premature. It's like talking about a Marshall Plan before the Battle of Stalingrad, if you will. First, pure evil must be eradicated. First, Hamas must be eliminated as a terror threat and as an existential genocidal threat that it poses to Israel. Now, your second question about refugees in Gaza, I think we should expand on that a little because, according to the Palestinians and the United Nations definition of what is the Palestinian refugee, it's a very specified and unprecedented definition in history, meaning that according to the Palestinian definition of a refugee, almost every person on planet Earth and their unborn great-grandchildren would be considered refugees. For instance, I should be considered as a refugee from Romania because my grandparents grew up there, and from Morocco, from where my mother is from. So the only reason of why Palestinians at the United Nations use this definition is to perpetuate the conflict through a narrative of false victimhood, and a twisted revenge for wars that the Palestinians themselves started, as you know, and basically to delegitimize the idea that the Jewish state is here to stay forever. So the definition I think that if we're using this terminology of a Palestinian refugee, that has no parallel in the world. If we're using this definition of UNRWA, for example, we're doing disservice not only to Palestinians themselves and to Israelis, because this is what perpetuates the conflict. I hope I answered some of your question. I know I expanded in other realms, but. Mm-hmm. You're asking me about a so-called right of return for Palestinian refugees, which, again, according to common sense, are not refugees, but according to twisted definitions, are refugees to perpetuate the idea of a conflict. By this definition, I should be a refugee of a piece of land in Romania that I should, somehow, I don't know, claim as mine, and my grandchildren would be able to do so. So I think if we're using this distinction, we're doing a disservice to the greater cause of future peace and future opportunities to the region. That would be my answer for now. And again, what I said about the contingency plans before, it's like talking about a Marshall Plan before the Battle of Stalingrad. Okay, Jim Williams. Let's see. Jim. Yeah, hi, Jim. No, that's So it's also something that we hear say that there was calm, so to say, on October 6th. I believe this is what the secretary meant. We say it here too. There was a ceasefire because there was calm in the southern border on October 6th, but then Hamas perpetrated the October 7th massacre and the so-called ceasefire broke. So what we say is, yes, we will have a ceasefire again, but only after Hamas is eliminated and after their military capabilities will be dismantled, after they no longer have the motivation to hurt us as they did, and once the hostages are back. Then we will have a ceasefire. Not before. Well, what we can say at this point, and we'll see, first we're coordinated very much with our American counterparts, and we're debriefing and holding hourly discussions, by the way, between Washington and Jerusalem. So we will see what will come out of discussions once the secretary is here. But we can say that more trucks are going to go in Gaza from the Rafah border crossing. We have increased the entrance of humanitarian aid with food supplies, with medical supplies, with water, and we're monitoring this humanitarian aid because we said that we will allow it in under one condition, as long as it doesn't end up in the hands of Hamas. But there is definitely more aid coming in because to the areas that we designated as the safer havens in the southwest. An overwhelming majority of the population of northern Gaza residents have already evacuated there, and that's where we want to see the civilian population receiving this aid. That's all I can say in that respect, and that we want to see international pressure mounting on Hamas to release the hostages. Because pressure works. All right. We have more questions, Nathan? Wait. Anyone sent us more? Let's see.
From Luke, the Israel guys, there are many accusations that settler violence has increased in Judea and Samaria since the war started. Is this true, or has settler violence decreased in the last 7 years?
Okay. You're asking me about settler violence in Judea and Samaria, and reports that settler violence had increased since the war broke. Well, these are not, I'm not familiar with specific reports, and I cannot address any kind of specific incidents. Obviously, we want the order in Judea and Samaria to be maintained. We're working towards it, and as I just read to you in my debrief, the IDF is operating there to eliminate Hamas terror suspects, and we have done just that. We arrested, I think, over... I think the number was 300, and I can't see it now, but I gave you the correct number, the top of the briefing of Hamas terrorists, in fact, in Judea and Samaria. There's a reason why we are operating there. As for what settlers are doing, well, I can't address any specific report. Do we have more? Let's see. One second, Isaac. JNS, yes, David Isaac. Hi. Of course. Well, Israel is a sovereign nation, and Israeli leadership, if it's the military commanders, if it's the Israeli government, they make the decisions of what eventually is taking place about military strategy and so on. But we are consulting with international partners, including with our best friends, the United States, and we are very grateful for the support that we have been receiving from the Biden administration so far. It is the moral leadership, the moral global leadership coming from the White House is so important during this time, because we need moral clarity to lead the world right now. We always say that Israel's on the front line of the war of the civilized world against savagery, and of course we want the United States providing us the tools and the support and the material support to do just that, to do what has to be done. There's no daylight between Jerusalem and Washington, if you're asking. Anything else, Nathan, or? Okay. All right, that concludes our daily briefing. See you here tomorrow. Thank you.